Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of MGR Unplugged. Today we have a lot of news that we're going to focus on. It's been really about 3 months since the pandemic really started being paid attention to. I mean, we know it started in February or so, but I think it was in the beginning of March when we really started looking into numbers and seeing what we do. It was at the end of, I remember it was the end of February when Trump said that he was banning any travel from China and all that. So it's probably a good time to recap things that are happening since then and what we expect in the future. And then in addition to that, we have a lot of things that are happening in the news with Trump's new executive order on Section 230 and some other elements. So quite a few things. David is here with me, and we have quite a few items on our agenda. So let's just get started.
People can tell me to stop. Lower the lights down. Hand over my crown. Hand over my heart. I do this for my town. I do this for my crowd. So turn me up real loud. My time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
All right, welcome back. David, how are you today?
I'm great. How are
great.
you?
Better than good. Good to great. Beautiful. So I think you and I were just talking on the break, and you wanted to start actually with what we call basically Section 230 of the law, and that comes as a result of Trump's new executive order that he's planning. I'm not sure he's done it. It was actually going on this morning. I'm not sure he's done it yet.
I saw some leaked information about it, but he hasn't officially signed anything into law.
Right. Okay. Well, why don't you give us a little brief on what that is? For the audience, how the whole thing started and why he's doing that.
So
we know that Trump is very, very active on Twitter, and at some point that's going to bring him.
So, all right, I'm going to say what happened, and then we'll give our thoughts and opinions.
And we are completely apolitical, so we're trying to. Well, we are not, but for the podcast, we are a little bit.
Well, I care less about the political left-right. I care more about the
repercussions. Exactly.
Okay, so basically what happened, this is exactly what happened. So Trump tweeted about mail-in ballots because of the coronavirus. Lots of states are trying to do mail-in ballots for the elections, so people don't have to go to polling offices. Trump tweeted something along the lines of, we absolutely are not doing mail-in ballots because they can be fraud. They can be faked very easily, fraud, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then what Twitter did, so he tweeted
which also in his claim, it means that he says the Democrats will benefit from that.
And he was basically saying the Democrats want to do this because they want to rig the election, blah, blah, blah. And then Twitter ended up putting a little fact check symbol beneath his tweets.
The tweet.
Which no one's ever seen before.
I've never seen it before.
It's
I actually was
thing.
looking for that. I thought it was, he said that they put this fact check warning or something.
Yeah.
Meaning that they're going to check what he said. Yeah. Like they're going to.
Well, basically, there's a fact check warning, and then when you click on it, it sent you to a page that basically gave you the facts about mail-in ballots. And so they did that, and that's unprecedented. They've never done that before. And Trump was upset, and he says, "What the heck is this?" And he went on a million tweets. You can go to his Twitter account if you want to read them all.
Yeah.
But basically, he tweeted a bunch about it, and then he says, "I'm gonna make an executive order because." He said this is like not the first time something like this has happened. Conservatives on Twitter and Facebook and other platforms have been censored and treated unfairly and all these things. And then he basically said, I'm going to write an executive order that we're going to regulate and punish these guys. That's what he said. And so that's the executive order that's coming out today. We don't know exactly what it's going to say, but the Section 230 part is where it gets interesting. Forget about, for a second, whatever you think about Trump or what you think about Twitter or Facebook or anything. If you just look at the law, basically, for those who don't know what Section 230 is, it's a law that it's pretty old. It's basically, not pretty old, but as far as the internet goes, it's pretty old. It came about in the 90s. Where I forget exactly which forum it was on, but this is pre-social media. It was on internet forums. And someone said something slanderous or untrue on a forum about somebody that really damaged their reputation. That person ended up taking the forum owners to court. And so then this case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court ruled that the forums, and in this case, like a Twitter, for example, is not responsible for what is posted on Twitter. They are simply a platform. They don't have editorial control. So they don't. So if someone posts something slanderous on Twitter, Twitter doesn't face ramifications. Whereas if the New York Times writes an article that's slanderous, then they can be punished and sued for slander.
Right, but again, like you said, this was actually set up, or this law came into effect before social media.
This is before social media, but it's applied. It's set precedent, saying if you create a public, free platform for anybody to speak, you're not responsible as the platform owner for what people say on it. That was the law. And that basically has been what governed for the last 25 years, and why every time people talk about, oh, Facebook should do this or Twitter should do this, it's always like, well, under Section 230, they're not supposed to, and they're protected.
And to be honest, that's also the defense that all these social media platforms have used, as far as them saying we're not supposed to be.
We're not police. We're not fact checkers. Right. We're not editorial. We're not a newspaper.
Right.
We're a public forum. And so, but the interesting thing is now, okay, so Twitter basically put a fact check thing, which is an editorial thing. And actually, people found an error in there. When you click on the link and it takes you to this page, there's actually an error in that page. It's saying something about Oregon and other states, and they said, oh, that's actually not true.
Okay.
But anyways, basically by doing that, the argument that Trump is making is that, well, that's editorial. Now all of a sudden you guys have become editorial. So if you become editorial, then I can treat you no differently than the Washington Post or New York Times as far as by editorial regulations which are in place.
Yeah, you
no
decide what is
fall under Section 230.
You become the judge of deciding what is correct or factual or not or whatever. Then you become obviously the executive.
That's the whole debate that's going on right now, and that's basically the quick summary for anybody who doesn't understand. Now, where people fall on this, obviously all types of areas. I'll give my opinion. I think Section 230 is a great thing, and I think that social media platforms, and Zuckerberg actually came out and said this too, because he obviously would be affected by this. And he said, we don't want to be in the fact-checking business. He says, we don't want to be editorial. He said, we leave it up to the users to decide those things, but we don't want to be under the... Now, obviously, he's saying those things because he doesn't want to be affected by the bill, but that's been his stance for a long time. And honestly, you know, the funny thing is, too, that Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, has been very pro-free speech for a long time, too. And he even, you know, one thing I'm very interested in, there's been a lot of talks, I don't know if you know about this, that Twitter is thinking about, Jack has proposed this, creating 2 Twitters.
Right, yeah.
One Twitter that's the current Twitter, and it's going to be and will actually become more censored for anything like hate speech, and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then basically a Wild West Twitter, nothing. There's
Everything
no
goes.
protection,
Right.
no deleting tweets, no censorship. Anything goes. Even really raunchy stuff, you know, even bad things, racism, homophobia, hate speech, anything goes. That's it. Wild West Twitter, basically. And he says, so people have the option. If you want to be on Wild West Twitter, you can be on Wild West Twitter. If you want to be on more controlled Twitter, you can be on, but they give people the option. I actually think that's a good idea, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, people will have to choose. I mean, people go to Twitter to listen to the people that like to listen to or follow. And people end up going to whichever Twitter platform those guys decide to be on. Probably they'll be on both. I mean, you're a personality or some person, you go on one, and it's like you go to a movie and it's like a greater maturity audience or mature audience or R or whatever, and then you go to another Twitter that is PG-13 and you're like, okay, in this one I need to be a little more moderate, but you are able to stay on both. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think
it is, because it answers...
It's like too much stuff now. Now we need to monitor 2 different Twitter accounts, and I said this on this one, I said this on that one.
Yeah, but it solves the problem of the big debate, and this is the nuance to it. And I think people are so emotional when it comes to these things, and so overreactive, and don't put on their rational thinking hats. In the same way, like, okay, another thing that's come up time and time again that I just really disagree with is that there's been so many people that say ban Trump from Twitter, because if anybody else were tweeting what he tweets, they would get removed from Twitter. And it's like, well, just because because you have to take away that it's Trump for a second. Take away the name, take away your connections, thoughts, whether pro or against Trump. Just think about it as this is a very important world leader that has a lot of power, okay? Do you want this person to be open and maybe on the side of probably over-communicative, almost to a fault, or would you rather them be guarded and not say anything and secretive and keep the public in the dark? Well, I personally would rather have a president be way over-communicative to a fault than be keeping the public in the dark. And this idea that banning Trump from Twitter is going to do anything, I think the truth is, listen, just because you ban him from Twitter, he's still the president of the United States. That's not going to change.
He'll find
that.
another platform.
Exactly. He's going to find another platform.
And he has so many followers. That's for a reason. It's just
but it sets a precedent too, because remember, Trump is not going to be president forever. We'll have many more presidents in the future. You're not always going to like who's president. That's life.
But he's also set up a trend because before he started pretty much announcing laws on Twitter.
And now every politician does that.
Right. And not only in the U.S., but also
worldwide.
International.
Yes.
I mean, there's
and I think that's a good thing.
The ECU promotes new laws, and they, even with Brexit, when they were going with negotiations on how to execute Brexit and whether it was going to be one way, the deadlines, all that stuff, they would actually make the announcements on Twitter. The president of the ECU. I mean, it's like European community. So
I think it's a good thing.
It's just a platform. Why not have a platform where you can have your direct voice versus what the press is going to say or extract from you?
Before it used to be just the president makes a statement and then it gets reported on all these channels.
Gets reported.
And now instead the president has a platform that he can just make the statement directly.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
But it's the same thing for everybody.
So this idea that banning Trump, because remember, people are too emotional in the moment. You have to think, if you set that precedent of banning Trump from Twitter, that means that in the future, any president or any political figure that people don't like, now we're just going to ban them? Okay, but they're still in power. That doesn't take their power away. So I think that's a stupid idea. But then beyond that, so back to this Section 230 thing and the Wild West Twitter and all that. The challenge is that, okay, nobody wants to have hate and vitriol on a platform. But unfortunately, when you have hundreds of millions of humans, it's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do about it. And the question is, where do you draw the line? What is and isn't allowed? And then who gets to decide that line? So right now, Twitter and Facebook and all these companies decide that line. But those are unelected officials of private entities. So why are they deciding things? Do we want them to decide things? I don't think they want to. Like Jack Dorsey has said, and Zuckerberg, I don't want to police things. He says, we run these platforms, but we don't want to be the police.
Well, I understand if they see. There's two things. I mean, one is the fact checking, which to me is kind of silly. I mean, every even when you have a political debate,
and fact checking is so can be gamed. That's the thing.
No, I understand. But
like
even
PolitiFact, which is one of the most famous,
yeah,
is run by the left, and you can,
but
that doesn't mean that they're not always right, but they are run by left organizations.
No, I understand. But even when you have a political debate or any kind of debate on TV or any kind of commentator, whatever, even sports programs that say facts and figures all the time, and then you want to fact check everything, you can fact check, you can say, okay, this number is right or wrong, or that season really wasn't a full season, or this wins and losses. Okay, well, that wasn't really a win. I mean, there's a lot of facts that you can take into consideration, but you don't censor the person for that. You let the people state the facts. Let's just stick to political debates. Every candidate is giving his or her own facts, and then there's programs after the fact that they say, okay, we're going to do fact checking. And then CNN and all these news organizations do, oh, well, what he said here is not really true because it was that. And then there's different interpretations of the facts. But that doesn't mean that the moderator says, no, you cannot say this, we're going to have to give you a fact check warning or something. It's like, okay, say whatever you want. We'll study the facts later on and see if it's true or not. So for these platforms to basically do that, let the people confirm. I mean, many times I'm not a big Twitter user, but when I see statements from people, business or whatever, there's a lot of people that contradict them, saying that's not true, that's not what was said, that's not what the fact is. The fact is this or that. So I agree that social media needs to be somehow policed as far as the kind of content that is more like when Facebook came with Facebook Live, and you start seeing all these people live committing crimes and all that stuff.
Okay, there's lines though. So
Right.
I'll give you an example. One thing is, like, okay, a big debate is like hate speech, quote unquote. What is hate speech? Where do you draw the line? You know, like, okay, maybe we can all agree that people shouldn't be saying racist things on Twitter. But what is racist, right? Because a lot of people say things are racist that
I'm learning
a
a lot
people
myself that
don't
I don't know they're
disagree
racist.
are racist or homophobic or anything like that. Or, you know, the big thing too is they say, oh, these companies need to stop the spread of misinformation. But I think this coronavirus pandemic is a perfect example of how complicated that issue is. Because because YouTube did this, and YouTube got called out a lot for this. YouTube said, if you're disagreeing with the WHO or the WHO, we are going to remove your content from YouTube. But the WHO was wrong, very, very, very wrong
Right.
about these things. The CDC was very wrong about a lot of things and had to backtrack statements. So now all of a sudden, someone who was posting things that were in contradiction to the WHO in, let's say, February, got their stuff removed from YouTube. But then in March, the WHO said, oh, no, this is true. So now that person
Right.
got punished for nothing. So this is complicated. So this idea, like when you say misinformation, who's deciding what is the correct information or not?
But it's not
You can
different
have
than TV.
obvious, there's some things that are very obvious lies, but in the majority is no, it's very nuanced, you know, and I think the pandemic showed that. Like, for example, YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, I think is her name?
Yeah.
CEO of YouTube. She said, anybody who posts
China.
about vitamin C,
Yeah.
that vitamin C, I forget exactly her terminology.
It's like an immune.
That basically will help you fight coronavirus. We're going to remove those videos. But then you have doctors who come out and say, but it does. You know, vitamin C is a crucial part of your immune system.
Right.
And you need vitamin C. If you have deficient vitamin C, then coronavirus could affect you much stronger than someone who isn't deficient. So now YouTube's deleting videos from that. Now, I understand what they're saying. Vitamin C isn't the cure for coronavirus.
Right.
But if you're deficient in vitamin C, your immune system's going to be weaker. This is just a medical fact.
I think they undermine the power of people to just inform themselves.
Yes, that's the other thing.
If I go to Fox News, I know what I'm going to listen.
That's the
You know,
other
I
thing.
know what I'm going to watch it. If
I
I go
think-
to CNN, I know what I'm watching. If I go to CNBC or MSNBC especially, I know what I'm seeing. So I can choose the channel, and I can
Right.
I can see exactly the same news, the same piece of news or the same story related in completely two different ways. And I can say, okay, I relate more to this one or that one, or I'm going to be somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But that's what we were discussing the other
And-
day,
and-
that there's no source of news that is completely neutral these days. Everything has, even the factual news always have this kind of editorial content, or they insert their own point of view. I understand the personality shows where you have the Rachel Maddows or this or that or whatever, that they go with their view, respected, or the other guy with the opposite view, respected. But those are editorial options and interviews. But then it'll be nice to have a program that is totally neutral. I don't care if it's Trump or Obama or whoever is the person in charge, just to give me the news and let me make my own opinion, but give me the news factually, you know. So I think these platforms are no different. I mean, we sometimes just focus on the headlines, which are very smartly written, and then we don't read the whole story. And lately, when I've been on Twitter a little more, I've seen, like yesterday, there was a story of some black guys that went to a gym. I'm not sure you saw that.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah,
With
it
the
was
VC who.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically they were tenants in the building.
There were, yeah, it was
And-
it was a gym in a private facility, in a private building, that it was just for tenants.
Yeah.
And then there was this group of black kids that were working out there, and
And
apparently they had
were-
a store down the street or something, totally legit or something. And this guy basically was telling the guys, "Are you guys members?" And,
Right. And then he called the police on
And
them.
he called the police,
Right. And it was basically.
and it went viral completely, like he was a racist thing or something. I don't know the details. The first time I saw it, it's like, oh man, here we go again. You know, what the fuck? Like, the guys are from
I saw the video. It was definitely racial profiling.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I know. And then you had the thing the other. There's been a lot this week. I mean, oh my God.
I know.
mean, obviously, there was the
And
worst.
the other lady with the dog.
Right, the one with the dog.
Yeah. I mean, it's just everything is.
The one that was horrible was the what's his name? The one in Minneapolis.
Oh, yeah.
happened.
That
What
was
was his name?
Floyd.
George Floyd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously there's the riots and all of that. Did you watch that video?
I didn't watch that video completely.
Oh
no.
man, if it fucked me up watching that.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't see it?
No.
I'm sure people have seen it by now.
In what
but,
way? What happened?
It was like
beating the guy or?
basically the officer put his knee on his throat.
Oh, I saw the picture of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just basically, it's like a 5-minute video.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
the
I
guy
can't
just
breathe
keeps
and-
his knee on his throat and
Yeah.
doesn't get up, and he's like, I can't breathe, please.
Yeah, that's totally broke.
And he just killed him, and it was like, it's funny. I saw it yesterday morning. Not funny, but I saw it yesterday morning, and it was like, it ruined my morning watching that, man. It was like really, it was disturbing. It was disturbing. Anyways, and that's what all the riots are. But
right.
no,
but the thing is that sometimes
I wanted to mention actually the dog one.
Yeah,
Because
that
that's
too.
an example of, okay, that lady was clearly nuts. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I saw the whole video.
Yeah, that lady was clearly nuts. She was clearly way overreacting. She was in the wrong. He said, put your dog on a leash. She didn't want to do it. And then she starts screaming on the phone to the police that she's
Right.
getting attacked by a black man.
Right.
She's obviously in the wrong. But
And she admitted that later on. I mean, the whole thing, she's walking her dog and she doesn't have it on leash, and then this in a
Right.
park. And there's a section that is for dogs to go freely.
Right.
And
Right.
she wasn't in that section of the park. And this guy that is walking by says, please put your dog on a leash. And then she doesn't. And then the guy starts getting confrontational. The guy starts filming her on a phone.
Right.
And then because she starts saying like, okay, I'm going to, and then she starts getting more upset and calls the police and all
Right.
that. Yeah.
she was clearly unhinged in that video, to say
Right.
it lightly. Like totally acting like he was attacking her when he's like 15
Right.
feet away.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and I'm not, again, she was totally in the wrong. But this lady, what people started doing, the internet mob, they found out who she was.
Mm-hmm.
They found her LinkedIn. They found out she was some vice president at Franklin Templeton.
Yeah. Investment, you see, yeah.
Everybody started emailing Franklin Templeton. The next day, Franklin Templeton fires her.
Fire her. Yeah.
And now that lady has her name plastered on the internet.
Right.
She got fired from her job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you this right now. It's going to be pretty damn hard for her to find another job. Who
Yeah.
the fuck wants to hire that lady? There's nobody, because if she works in finance, Franklin Templeton, and she was some VP, she's not just going to find another VP job somewhere else. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Who wants to hire her and take that risk? They're going to, the second, every company when they hire people these days looks you up. And the second they look up her name, no, thank you.
Right.
So and her life is basically ruined right now because of that.
All because she had a bad time, a bad moment.
All because of a 1-minute video clip where she was clearly in the wrong. I'm not saying she wasn't in the wrong, but does that mean that her whole
And
life
she
should
admitted,
be-
she said, yeah, I overreacted. Okay, a lot of people overreacted these days because we're in a freaking stressful situation. And this lady is walking her dog in the park. She's this guy, says, put her on a leash. I don't know. I mean, definitely she was wrong. And she said it. She said, I apologize. I overreacted.
I know, but even if, besides, everybody's going to apologize when a million people are attacking you.
Right.
But I'm saying, does a 1-minute video clip like that warrant just ruining someone's whole life? And that's kind of I'm very pro internet and pro, I think all these people who say that Twitter is bad and Facebook is bad, I think they all are very closed-minded and don't see all the good that these platforms do.
But it's hard to
this
tell.
is when
But
these are
even-
the cases where it is bad, and it's like,
But exactly, because like the other case yesterday with the group of kids or people that were working out in this gym, the first time I saw it from one of the people that I follow on Twitter is like, oh no, what the guys are you thinking or whatever? No, or what's this guy thinking or whatever, something like that. Like basically meaning that the guy that was at the gym was doing the same thing to a group of black kids that were working out. And then I spend more time scrolling and this, and then I see more facts and people say, no, these guys actually were in a gym that is a private property for just the tenants, and these guys that do not belong in the building. So they went there. The guy was asking them.
I believe they were tenants though. That was
No,
the
they
whole
were
thing.
not. They had a store that is down the street, and they are nearby, and they're known and all that stuff, but they were not tenants in the building or something. And then so the guy basically said, I'm going to call security because you guys don't belong here.
He called the police.
Well, yeah, before it was security and then the police or whatever. But basically, it's like we try to... And the
But
question is, if the guys were white, would have been the same reaction?
The difference is, if the guys were white, though, the guy doesn't call the police probably.
Right. Okay, well, that's the thing that is wrong.
The other thing that
The guy actually came back saying, listen, the facts are I I questioned them. I said, you guys belong here, whatever. And then
The thing is that my question is, okay, like the dog park lady. That happens all the time. People get in arguments in public all the time. But now because everybody's recording it and can post it online, instead of it being a dispute between a couple people and then it probably gets resolved and nothing happens and they move on with their lives, now it's millions of people have seen it. The internet mob goes after someone, ruins her life for a mistake she made.
And
what's the proper justice for that?
Well,
too,
the thing is that this, and
There's
that's
no
a good
trial,
point. That's a
there's
good
no
point
jury.
because all these things, if that exact situation happens 20 years ago, nobody fucking knows.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. The police probably show up. What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, I told her to put her leash on. Oh, blah 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 blah. Okay, ma'am.
And I
walk
relate
away.
to that all the time.
That shit happens all the time.
Listen, I go running every
Now,
weekend.
I want to be clear. I understand totally that. Yeah, she
had a bad day.
She played the race angle, which is like, what the fuck? You
Yeah,
know? She
okay.
played the race angle on
I
the
know,
phone with the
stereotyping. Yeah, she did.
She went on
and
the phone with the
not
cops
to
and
mention,
said
she
there's
was
a black man attacking
She was
her or
actually
whatever.
so stressed out that even her dog, she was
Oh my God,
choking
she was
her
like
dog
choking her dog.
because the dog was not on leash. So she's grabbing the little poodle from the collar, and at some point the poodle was like choking because she's like upset, talking on the phone, grabbing the dog by the collar, and he was upside down, and he's like. It's like I was actually fearing more for the dog. I'm surprised PETA or somebody didn't complain about the
Oh,
stuff.
and by the way, I fucking hate when people don't have their dogs on a leash.
I know that's what I was gonna say.
I'm so on that guy's side.
I go running every
Oh
weekend.
my God.
Okay, I go running every weekend and I go through the park that is nearby, and I'm okay with dogs and all that stuff. But it's like, okay, it's very clear that it says dogs must be on a leash, and it's fine. Some dogs are very well behaved. Some others are just basically barking because they feel threatened. I understand that dogs are dogs, okay. But I'm running at my own pace or whatever, and then you see this dog that is loose and comes barking at you, and you're like, okay, and he's like, he comes, and then the owner is like, hey, screaming, come here. The dog doesn't even listen, just comes to me, and then it starts sniffing, whatever, following me, running, and then finally, oh, I'm so sorry, laughing like it's a fun thing. It's like, dude, it's not a fun thing, okay? First of all,
I know. One time, I was riding a bike, and literally, this dog was like, showing its teeth.
Yeah.
And like sprinting at me, and it was like trying to bite my damn legs, but I kind of outran it and got away from it, and it was like some old lady.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if you're an old lady, you can't run after your dog.
I know.
You don't have the ability, so keep it on a fucking.
Well, that's the
leash.
point. But back to this thing, it's like,
And by the way, he's a bird watcher, and he was in a
Yeah,
bird
right.
watching area.
Right.
And so the dog off the leash was scaring all the birds.
Right.
And that's why he said, "Hey, lady, can you put your dog on a leash and get the fuck out of here?" Basically, because
Yeah.
you're scaring all the birds.
well, that's the thing. That the point that we're going back is that exchange 10, 15 years ago happens between two people. Maybe the lady is reacting the same way, gets upset, gets threatened, whatever, stereotyping, and then it stays in close quarters. Nobody's life is ruined, whether the
Right.
guy or the other
Right.
person or whatever.
What's the appropriate punishment?
or
for that?
even the guy feeling like he has to film the situation with or videotape it with his film it with
I
his
don't blame
phone.
him for filming.
No, I understand.
Because
Nowadays
when she
you have to
started-
film. Yeah.
When she started saying a black man is attacking me, I'm
Right.
gonna be like, okay, well, I'm clearly 15 feet away
Yeah,
from you. I have
exactly.
evidence.
Never even close. If
Right.
anything, she's the one who gets close to
Right,
him, as
right.
opposed to him close to her. He had no intention. So, but it's just that now everybody feels like you have to film everything and have proof of everything, So, I understand. I mean, I don't know how, back to the Twitters and the Facebooks and the YouTubes and all that stuff, how they can actually be moderators or fact checkers or policing content or
That's the thing.
It's just, what is the policy?
Right. First of all, there's no way Twitter or Facebook or anybody is going to be able, when you have hundreds of millions or billions of users,
Exactly.
you cannot moderate that. It's just not possible without having massive restrictions to the point that they're no longer open platforms.
And add to that the fact that there's a lot of content that may be offensive in one country, but in another. And there's a lot of things that conversations are mixed up, and
Not even just countries, in groups. I mean, like, it's no different than, okay, especially a guy, when I'm with my guy friends in a private setting,
yes,
we make jokes and say things that I would never say publicly
or in a group with girls, or
not
with
even just
or a mixed
girls,
group,
or in other groups,
Right.
or on Twitter. But that's okay because we say inside jokes, and we don't mean them in. You know, everybody knows what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
And it's like, so if someone's on Twitter and making a joke within a certain group in a context, where if you get the inside joke, you get it, but on the outside, it might be highly offensive. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people who don't understand the context are now like, wait, what did you just say?
Mm-hmm.
And attacking them. You know, it's funny when we.
It's the same thing as when you get a journalist in locker rooms and things like that. That was a big controversy back when it started, because players have conversations in the locker rooms that are between the players, and what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. Okay, and players don't even disclose that. There's cases where players disclose lies or anything, and they got totally bashed for doing that. So when you allow a journalist to come into a locker room, everybody's like, oh, all of a sudden it's like, now we need to talk normal. You know, we're not going to have that normal conversation between guys or girls just in the locker room.
Well,
you know,
it's funny because remember when we did our 2020 at the very beginning of the year, or maybe it was at the end in December, I forget. It was basically our looking to the next decade episode. We did this.
Yeah.
We can go back and we were kind of making our predictions. The biggest prediction I made, as I said, I think that this decade we will see many new social platforms pop up, that it won't be just the big mega Facebooks
like
and
more
Twitters.
niche type.
And I said that there will be niche and very group focused and more insulated. And so that you'll have many more smaller groups of people. Mm-hmm. This is exactly why I said that. Because I think that I love Twitter for a lot of things, but for nuanced conversation within specific groups, it's not good for that. It just isn't.
But
you know?
is that why Twitter came up with this new feature that I haven't tried yet? Where, well, first of all, I don't even have enough followers for me to try that. But where you can actually start a conversation and only tag the people that can reply or can be part of it.
I don't like that.
I don't even know how could be.
I don't
how
like
that could be implemented.
They just basically make it so that if they're not basically, if you can set it so
only friends or only followers can
only
answer.
people you follow can reply to it.
Right.
So basically,
only people you follow, not the people that follow you.
Right.
Okay, I see.
Right. And so that way they control it. The reason I don't like that is because the point of Twitter, the reason Twitter is, the great part about Twitter is that it allows for open conversations where you can have 0 followers or 1 million and you have the same equal voice. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about Twitter. Now, that's also a bad side because you can have trolls and all types of people, anybody in the mentions. And that's why I think that Twitter will be used still for a lot of things, but there will also be, like, there's even a rumor about Twitter groups being launched in the same way there's Facebook groups.
Right.
Having Twitter groups. I don't know if Twitter would do that.
But I mean, there's other options for that. I mean, I like in this particular feature, which I just learned about a couple of days ago.
Actually, you know what's funny? I keep saying that. What's funny? I didn't use Facebook for years, and now I actually am back on Facebook, not for the regular feed Facebook, but because I'm in multiple Facebook groups.
Oh, groups, yeah.
It's actually great.
Yeah, for groups, it's
great. It's great because
yeah.
you have a bunch of people who it's invite only, so you have to be accepted in, and it's all people. So I'm in like
in a
certain
community.
ecom group,
Right?
And it's just ecom people,
right?
And it is heavily moderated. So if you start talking about politics or something, they're just gonna remove it, you know?
Right.
And in those contexts,
you
it's
need to stay
actually
on topic.
great.
Right. For that stuff is great.
No, that doesn't work for everything. I don't want Twitter to go away and there only to be groups.
But I don't understand the and we'll wrap up this topic and then take a quick break. But this thing with Twitter, which is a new feature that I like, again, you can select when you tweet something, you can select who sees your tweet, and you can select only certain people or your entire followers. No, people that you follow, you said.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what happens is that normally relevant people, the real relevant people they follow few people, but they are followed by millions or hundreds of thousands.
Right.
I mean,
and
the ratio is
you can't control who follows you, but you can control who you follow.
Right, but if
why they did
it. You make a comment, don't you think these people want to actually or promote or spread their opinion through all the people that are following them? Everybody,
they can still see it. Anybody can see it.
Okay, so everybody can see, but they cannot comment.
You just can't reply on it. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so that's the explanation. Okay, so they can see, but they cannot reply. So you're basically censoring who can say what.
So it's just basically saying,
If I don't follow you-
here's my thought. I don't want to have conversations
take it
about
or lose
this,
it.
but here's my
That's
thought.
it. And
Yeah.
if I don't follow you, meaning that if I don't consider you part of my circle, then you cannot comment, and everybody else can comment.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right. Well, we still have a lot of things to discuss.
We didn't finish the. I wanted to wrap a bow on the
the section
230.
yeah,
We kind of
please,
went
go
off
ahead.
on a tangent.
Go ahead.
The problem is there's so many things to talk
Right,
about.
right.
Now, what I actually think the Wild West Twitter and then I don't know, safety pad Twitter is a good idea, because then people can choose what they want. If you go on safety pad Twitter, you know that you're not going to get complete free flow of information, that there's going to be some levels of censorship, and you guys basically accept that. If you go on Wild West Twitter, it's because, hey, it's totally open ideas and anybody can say anything, but don't be upset when you see things you don't like. And my ultimate thing is,
Well,
you always have to, you can never have a perfect system. The perfect system is you create a system that can, let's say you create some perfect AI that can filter anything that's really hateful and really misinformation and all those things. That would be the perfect system. But that doesn't exist, because who dictates what's misinformation? Like we said, the WHO is a perfect example. They were totally wrong. They went back. They were colluding with China, all types of things. So then if you were going by the WHO, which was supposed to be the information authority, they were wrong on many things. Okay, so that doesn't work in a sense where you'd think at least... You'd think the WHO, when it comes to a fucking pandemic, would be the best source
Right.
of information,
we
and they
covered
weren't.
that. Yeah.
And so that's a perfect example of why policing information and misinformation is an impossible task.
Well, I mean, things change. Facts change too. I mean, you can
Yeah,
only,
exactly. And the other thing is, like, there's always in statistics, there's lies, damn lies, and whatever, right? You can fake statistics, you can fake charts. Even when you say a fact, yes, on paper, in theory, a fact is a fact. Irrefutable, this is the truth. But in real life, people game facts all the time.
They do.
So
and
when you
and
say
also,
fact check,
when people say you change your mind, okay, well, with the information I had at that point,
Right.
this is what I thought
Right.
was the best course of action, whatever it is. Now I've learned more
or even
about
the
it.
data. For example,
Right, yeah.
coronavirus. Back in February, before when everybody was underreacting, I was on this podcast saying we need to shut shit down. This could be really bad. We have no idea how bad this is. The death rate in China could be like 7%, and if that's the case, and remember Italy was like 10% at the time. I said we can't have millions of people getting it and 10% dying. I said this is going to be terrible. And that was what my opinion was. Let's lock everything down. We don't have enough data. Now that we have much more data, I'm saying, hey, we need to start opening things up again. That doesn't mean Wild West open everything,
Right.
but we need to reopen the economy.
Right. You keep learning.
Right? Because
Exactly.
we have more data now.
But-
and that's my personal example of not changing, but just saying, now we know more, so we can take a different course of action. And that happens all the time.
But let me get back, since you said this about the Section 230, just talking about the Wild West Twitter and the tamed or
I think
toned down Twitter. What prevents then Facebook from doing the same thing?
I think
YouTube
Facebook
from
should
doing
do
the same thing?
I think
so
they should all do the same
so
thing.
we're gonna have basically two versions of all social
think
media,
so.
like a YouTube that is like right now when you post anything on YouTube, it says even for children, it says
That's okay. I'm not against the kids thing.
No, I
obviously.
understand. I'm not saying that I oppose. I'm
Now,
saying
the
that right
China
now,
stuff,
right
did you
now
see
you
the China
have
stuff?
yes, they're removing anything that is against China's policies. and all that stuff.
Certain terms
Yeah.
that are
Mhm.
like Chinese slang against, like, one thing that I actually thought was pretty funny was they call it the 50 cent party in China. That's like a slang thing, and it's because, like, I forget the exact reason, but it was because they take 50 cents for every dollar or something like that, or I forget exactly, but it was actually a funny joke. But if you posted that on YouTube in the comments or anything, they immediately removed it.
But is that? I was wondering why that happened. Is this because of the tensions with China, or because of the racial profiling of the coronavirus?
No. So their explanation was, and I actually believe them once I read the full explanation, how YouTube's comment filtering works is that anybody can submit comments. So like, for example, the N-word, okay? If a bunch of people submit to, because you can go to YouTube and submit terms that you think shouldn't be used on comments that are very hateful. And if YouTube gets a ton of those, then the algorithm will automatically start filtering it. So you can't use the N-word in the comment section because a bunch of people said, hey, this is hateful and offensive, they shouldn't use this. So what Chinese bots or people or whoever from China's propaganda group basically started reporting all of these anti-CCP words, and the algorithm automatically added it to the filter. And they said, we didn't even know, because it was the algorithm that did it by itself, and they said, we're going to fix it right now.
So that was YouTube.
I believe them.
YouTube basically relying on their own algorithm,
but
being gamed to do that, but it wasn't YouTube.
It wasn't
promoting
YouTube. Susan Wojcicki saying, hey, censor this.
Okay. I thought it was
the algorithm.
Okay, I was confused about that. I thought it was more like, because I mean, I know there's a lot of...
right. Now, it doesn't make sense for them, because why would they do that? I'm not saying Google's perfect in any way, but YouTube's banned in China anyways, so why do they give a fuck?
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's take a quick break, and then we can continue with this or get on to the rest of the topics. We'll be right back. Welcome back, David. Thanks for joining me again. So we just finished talking about all the social media opinions that we have, editorial.
There's probably more to talk about, but we can talk, because we don't even know what's going to happen with the executive order. So we'll talk about maybe next week again.
It's funny because the topic has been in the news for a while, even since the elections, actually, when they rigged the elections from Russia and all the stuff. But now, because Trump initiated this executive order, is when it's kind of taking headlines again. So, but
I do want to say that it is kind of ironic that really now it seems like neither side likes them and likes Twitter and Facebook, because the left was upset because of the Russian interference and all of that, and the right is upset because obviously the people who run Twitter and Facebook are very much Silicon Valley and San Francisco based, which is very liberal.
Very liberal, right.
And so they do treat conservatives differently than liberals, and so they basically pissed off both sides now.
And now actually Trump is worried that China is trying to rig the elections because they want the Democrats to win, or Biden basically, who they think they can...
No comment on that. I have no idea.
He calls him Sleepy Joe, saying, oh, they want to go back to they don't want the tough guy that I am, so they want the Democrats to win the election. So anyways, that will be topic for another day. But I wanted to switch over to the economy. So
the economy or the stock market? Because these days those are two very different things.
Okay. Mostly the stock market. The economy is definitely not doing so well.
We just passed 40 million unemployed now.
Yes, we did. We'll see how many of those are able to come back as this thing comes to an end, or a transition to going back to work. So that's my big question mark. In the beginning of this thing, I said, yes, we're going to have a lot of unemployed people, furloughed people and all that. And my hope is that all those people will come back and will be rehired, so to speak, or back to work after all this is over. So in that case, that number will
I do want to say there's a lot of talk about the unemployment payments causing people not to go back to work.
Right, that's another reason, yes.
And I just want to say, if you're on unemployment checks, but you're able to go back to work now, and you're not, when you lose your job because they had to hire someone else, I have no sympathy for you.
No, well, that's the thing. That's
happening.
And that's one of the topics that like restaurants are trying to reopen, and they're trying to call their former employees back. And some of them are saying, oh, I don't feel safe, I don't want to go back.
They make a ton of money. They make more with unemployment than they make
working. And they're not coming back. So the restaurant basically wants to make a living, and the owner is saying, okay, well, if you don't come back when I'm asking you to come back, I'm going to have to hire somebody else, and then I will not be able to hire you. And when these unemployment benefits end, I think they extended it to July or something, then you're going to have to look for a job. So that's a tricky thing. But I do think the 40 million will be reduced. How much? I don't know, because companies are also learning to be much more efficient.
One thing I wanted to discuss that we were basically...
But quickly, because I also want to transition to the stock market.
Well, that's what I mean, the stock market.
Okay.
The fact that the stock market is down, what? Now it's down 10% from the highs, 15? And
well, we're actually, it's funny. I mean, the last 2 days, it's gone up like 1,100 points. That's the Dow.
We're back at like December levels.
Yes. And then there was a little dip, and now we're back to like March or February levels before things started taking the big dip or the big correction.
So this is why I said that the stock market is not the economy, and it never, the stock market was never the economy, right? But
Not according to Trump.
now it's so separated
It's
from
totally disconnected.
reality.
And
How
even
do you have 40 million people lose their jobs and the market doesn't
not
react?
only that, if you remember in the last, let's say 8 to 12 months, we had the trade negotiations with China, which basically were affecting the stock market heavily. Every Trump tweet, they'll say, "Oh, we're gonna sign. It's all good. Oh, stock market will go up. Oh no, we're finding some obstacles. Stock market will go down." It was just a tweet, okay, that will cause that. Secondly, the Hong Kong disturbs and protests and stuff that also will affect the stock market. Unemployment, just weekly numbers or monthly numbers and all the stuff will affect the stock market. Right now, we're having all those things together plus a pandemic that we're just barely coming out of. If
and
that.
by the way,
and the market is
the biggest GDP drop
Yes.
since the Great Depression, and the market doesn't
So
care.
we have all those things, and you see the market, and today is about 25. The S&P is about 3,000.
That's fucking crazy.
I know, it's incredible. So I don't know.
But also keep in mind, the S&P. I think a lot of people don't know this. At least people who are not very much paying attention to the markets and just kind of passively watch it. The S&P is weighted, and so even though it's 500 companies, it's not 500 split shares,
Right.
or evenly split up the pie.
Right.
It's weighted, and so companies like Apple and Amazon and Facebook and all the ones that basically have either done well, like Facebook and Amazon through this crisis, or haven't been affected that much. Like Apple, obviously they'll be affected, but they'll be fine. They're a huge, rich company. They'll be fine. They make up the Microsoft too. Basically these big companies,
The tech companies,
the big
for the
tech
most
companies that really haven't been very affected because they operate in the world of bits, not in the world of atoms. And the world of atoms has been what's affected. They've actually, Facebook's gone up.
Right.
And Amazon's gone up.
Amazon too. I mean, yeah, most of the tech.
And so these stocks are heavily weighted. I think the top 6 stocks in the S&P contribute to 50%
Right.
of the overall weight,
Yeah,
which means the other
we had that-
494.
We had that pie chart the other day, what it
so-
shows the.
I think the better one to look at is actually the Russell.
Yeah, that's always been a more of a small to
But
medium
even
sized
the Russell
businesses.
is not as effective as it should have been. And I don't understand. Obviously you have the Fed that just pumps trillions of dollars into the economy and is just buying securities now and buying corporate debt like it's no big deal. But buying junk bonds like we discussed like a month ago, but even despite that, I just think it's insane.
But even if we stick to the Russell 2000 is definitely a more realistic view of the economy of the businesses in general, more than the Dow, which is only 30 stocks, and the S&P 500, which is 500 but is very weighted towards the tech stocks that are doing well. But even when you look at that, those two indexes together, they were reacting very sensitively to the economic news, whether it was one way or the other, whereas unemployment, good numbers, bad numbers,
but even a
pandemics, and this,
company-
and now they're like totally tone deaf.
We were discussing this.
Which, if you're a market expert or the so-called market experts, I don't understand. They don't have a theory for this.
A company like Disney, which I think Disney's a great company. I think that they're very smart. I think Bob Iger's a great CEO. He looks like he's staying even longer now. And I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But the fact that their stock is basically at where it was before the whole virus, when their biggest profit drivers, which is the parks and cruises, that's where, if you look at the breakdown of their revenue and everything, like people talk about the streaming. The streaming is a great customer acquisition, top of funnel tool. But when you look at a breakdown of their profits, they lost $1 billion on this Disney Plus in
Right.
streaming.
Well, because he barely started in
Right.
December, and
But-
then this happened.
But they lose money on that. The two things that they make the most money on are parks and cruises and TV deals. Okay, well, guess what? ESPN and all the sports, all that money's gone, all that advertiser revenue, and the parks are shut down. So they basically lost.
and their hotels are also.
Yeah, and their hotels. Basically, the majority of their profits were just wiped out this year. And stock isn't affected.
Well-
And not only that, the head of Parks basically said it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years before we see the same levels of revenue that we saw pre-virus.
Right.
But the stock has not been affected.
Right.
How does that make
Well,
any
I mean,
sense?
it was affected, but again,
No,
I
but
think,
it's back to where it was pre-virus.
Yeah, because I think again, a lot of investors saw what happened 10, 11 years ago with the previous recession, and then now there's a huge fear of missing out. I mean, the famous FOMO that is being around, and then a lot of people have realized that okay, back in the 2008/9 recession, the market dipped in March 2009 when the Dow went from the peak of, I think it was 13,000 and a half, 13.5 or something, to about 6,000, basically dropped 50%. But then it recovered that and tripled over the next 10 years. So a lot of people are thinking that because this was
but
not...
You think,
Well, I know, but a lot of people are thinking, okay, every little hiccup the market comes with like a little rebound, everybody jumps in saying, okay, I don't want to miss.
I know, but
and
the difference is that through that whole time, GDP was growing
right.
and was actually growing at a decent rate. GDP
And unemployment, it weren't that bad.
Right.
I mean, it was
and unemployment was at all-time lows.
But now we have a deflationary situation too. So that.
But the
that
thing is, the economy runs on productivity. This is what people don't understand. The economy, you can pump money, you can have business cycles, you can have debt cycles. But what matters, what the long-term trend that matters for the economy is productivity going up. And the closest indicator we have, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, of productivity is GDP. And GDP had its biggest drop in 100 years. And the market didn't
But that's
give a
being
shit.
that's also been globally for all countries. So I think
Yeah, but
the chances of when you say like we're now just start the race towards the recovery, the U.S. is going to run over. I mean, just
well,
lead that race.
the argument, and this is a fair argument, and I remember I said this back in March, that the advantage that the U.S. always has over every other country is that when things get bad, there's capital flight, and where does that money fly to, escape to?
Right.
It comes to the U.S.
Right.
But-
You have countries like Argentina, who is basically declaring bankruptcy
Right.
again, and nobody.
But not even just Argentina. I mean, even Eurozone.
Yeah, European countries. Yeah,
They're
Like,
freaking out because they
can-
don't even know what's going to happen with the euro.
They can issue debt, and it's like, okay, well,
They
I'm not
want-
sure if I want to buy that. Now, the U.S. issues debt, and everybody's jumping.
Everybody wants dollar-denominated assets and shares and companies. Basically, the U.S. dollar is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. I think the U.S. dollar is going to be worth more than the euro and the pound pretty soon. And so that's why the money's coming here. And obviously, we have the most... as many issues as the U.S. has, we have the best financial markets in the world when it comes to liquidity, when it comes to regulation, oversight, all of those things. Look at China, which is the other superpower. Why does money not capital flight to China? Because even the Chinese investors and business people move their money to the U.S. They don't
Right.
trust it
Well,
there's
because
so
the
much
currency
fraud.
is so manipulated, it's not
Right.
even
And
funny.
so the money comes here because we are the safe haven. And so the argument is, okay, the U.S. is the safe haven, so there's capital flight here. The Fed pumped trillions of dollars into the economy, and that's basically why things haven't crashed.
All right, so let me ask you one more thing.
Fair. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask you because I also want to jump to one more topic before we wrap it up for today. But so right now, what looks like a V-shaped dip. So we picked, sometime early February, and then we dipped, April, mid-March, late March, and now we're back up again to, like I said, levels from March, or even you back up even more, like December or so. Do you think this will continue, or do you think it'll become eventually like a double W or something where we have another dip and then another recover? Or is this sustainable? It'll be flat, or is the worst over, basically?
No, the worst is not over. For the virus.
For the market.
So for the virus, I think the worst is over. For the market, okay, that's a...
Because the market is forward
Are we talking
thinking.
U.S. or globally?
No, I'm talking about the U.S. The market is forward thinking. So if the market thinks that the
Right,
second half
but-
of the year
This is
will
where I
be
think it's good.
like this is basically a lost half year, so to speak.
I think...
And then we lost 2 quarters of economy, and we went basically we got lost in the shuffle, and then we backpedaled for a while. And now are we go back to normal, like as far as the
Okay.
market progressing like it was before, like the strongest economy in the world and all that towards elections?
No, I think, and again, I don't like making predictions exactly on price movements because that's so hard to predict. But if I had to put my best guess, and what I basically how I'm investing is I look at it as I think that in the U.S. that we're not going to see the S&P now go to 4,000 in the next few years, or the Dow go to 40,000 in the next few years, like continue that growth pattern. I think the U.S. markets are going to be flat for at least like 2 years, like stagnant. Like maybe it might not go down, but it's not going to be making big gains. I definitely don't think so. I think the global markets, I think Europe, I think emerging markets are in big trouble. They're in deep shit. They are, I mean, I think that emerging markets are going to be hurt for a long time after this. And I think that the thing that will hold the U.S. up is the fact that we are the safe haven. And I think that money is going to come to the U.S. from all over the world.
It's funny because when you think back in the days when people were talking about the BRIC, the Brazil, Russia, India, and China, you know, that's the big investment markets for foreign. I mean,
no,
all
I mean,
of
Brazil
those,
is like
they're done. I mean, they were done for a while.
Brazil is like I feel bad for the people of Brazil.
Right.
India, different. I think India will benefit depending on what happens with China. If what looks like is going to continue, the U.S. really cracks down on China because it looks like it's bipartisan now, whereas before it was more Republicans. It looks like it's bipartisan now. And then we'll see what the rest of the world does. I think that India will benefit a ton from that. If all of a sudden people are looking for alternative manufacturers and a country, because the difference is India has plenty of its own problems, but at least India is much more free than China. They're not a dictatorship, basically. And that's the advantage that India has. And if I had to guess...
And when it comes to technology, India is one of the top countries. I mean, there's
if I had to guess who had... And this is a big statement because I think a lot of people disagree with me. If I had to guess who had the larger GDP 30 years from now, China or India, I would say India, even though India is way behind. I think India will be the Asian superpower 30 years from now. Unless China becomes a democracy, which may happen because Xi has actually said that. Xi said that they have a 20 to 30 year plan where maybe, because he's like 60 something, that once he dies that they're just going to kind of, it reminds me actually, what am I going to say? Of something that you experienced.
The
Franco.
Spain with Franco and the dictatorship.
You were born in Spain.
Yeah, but that was a completely extreme right dictatorship.
Yeah, but it
wasn't a communist thing.
It's the same in the sense that you were born in a dictatorship, and it's just true. You're the American, what do you call it? You're the American dream story. You escaped a dictatorship and came to the U.S. and built a life for yourself.
I didn't escape the dictatorship. We were way into democracy by the time I came.
Anyways, it sounds better.
That ended up in 75.
When you run for office, you can say...
I'm old, but not that old. That ended up in 75, and it had been a while. I had voted a few times.
When you run for governor...
In a multi-partisan election.
When you run for governor, I'll write your speech for you, and you can say, I escaped dictatorship and came to America.
That's the American dream.
On a boat.
I think it was an airplane. Multiple times.
Anyways, okay, so basically...
I'm going to edit this out, by the way.
But it's a similar situation in that, basically, for anybody that doesn't know, Franco was a dictator, but then when he died, Spain became a democracy. And I think the same, they're talking about that happening with China. The G is like 65 or something, and that within the next, he's not going to live forever. So within the next 20 to 30 years, he will probably die. And then at that point, he's discussed it himself that China will become a democracy. He basically said, we can't keep a dictatorship forever because eventually they'll revolt against us. And they know that. And so unless China becomes a democracy, I think India will be the Asian superpower. So to wrap the markets talk, off of that tangent, I think the U.S. will see stagnation. I think the rest of the world is in trouble. Okay. That's it.
All right, so let me just switch to the last topic, much later than all these discussions on social media and the market and all that stuff. So let's go to sports. All right, I'm very excited because in the last 2-3 weeks, it looks like sports are finally coming back. We've been missing them. I like sports to watch. a lot, especially
To
obviously.
watch? How else do you normally consume sports?
No, I mean to play too, like to be able to like play or something. But I don't. I mean, other than racing and biking and things like that, I don't practice group sports or anything. But anyways, I like sports. It's just something that you need to have to watch, like relaxing or something. And I've been missing. Specifically auto racing and all that stuff, which is my big passion. But I know David has been missing a lot of basketball and all that stuff. I miss soccer.
It'd be the conference finals, going to the finals right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been like a little drought, and so anyways, in the last 3 weeks, it looks like all major sports around the world have started to kind of come up with solutions to resume or restart or plan for the second half of the year to either continue what they left off or come up with new plans. So this last couple of weeks, like I said, NBA is making some final decisions. Soccer in the different European leagues are also coming back. Bundesliga has been around now. It's been back for like a week and a half. I think I've been watching highlights all day. La Liga in Spain is coming back. It looks like June 15th. They're already training and all that. EPL, the English and the Premier League are also...
The Italian league announced today, too.
Right.
That was surprising. Because
when was the EPL coming back? Also June?
June 17th.
Right. It's the same as Spain, basically, which means that the Champions League, which is the champions of all the leagues in Europe, is also going to continue. They were in the final 16 round, I think, or final 8, and the quarterfinals. I don't know where they left off.
The last... sporting event, the second to last sporting event I watched was, who was Atletico playing?
They were playing Liverpool. They beat Liverpool.
And I remember watching that. And the
Yeah.
stadium was packed. And this is in March.
They actually,
I was like,
they actually said now that was in England, and they said now that they can trace back a number of cases in England that came after that game, that came from people that were at that game. Because there were people from Spain, a lot of people that are flying from Spain, or people from Spain that live in England.
Soccer stadiums are not
they're like
sanitary places.
There's no social distancing or anything. So anyway, sports are coming back. So what do you know, David? I mean, basketball, I don't know much about it. I mean, I know they're trying to do this kind of different options.
I don't know. Everybody's come with their ideas.
But is the World Cup
it's just
format?
Speculation.
So it's not approved. It was just a comment.
Nothing's been approved. They were gonna do. Mark Cuban proposed a single elimination tournament for the 7, 8 through 12 seeds or something, and then other people said, let's do World Cup style group stages. But no, they haven't made a decision.
But they are they? Do we have a date for the NBA or
no? They said late July. That's all they said.
And the plan so far is to be playing in a single city
in Orlando.
In
Disney World.
In the Disney World complex,
Yep.
different courts. And then everybody's there, totally tested, quarantine, all that stuff. So there's no spectators, obviously, that kind of none of the sports. So all right, so that's one of the leagues that is still kind of pending because, like I said, soccer leagues are coming back. Formula One, sport that I love, is definitely coming back. They have pretty much the second half of the season planned, even though it's completely different schedule than what they had. They're going to have multiple races at the same venue, like back-to-back, to diminish travel and keep control.
You think that's going to affect... you think the second weekend, everybody's going to be much faster than the first because they just raced there?
It's so variable. It depends a lot. I mean, in Formula One, it's so dependent upon the weather and things like that. Like many times, they have a race, and then they have like practice or testing the day after, literally at the same track. Like the team stay to test tires or whatever, and they don't go as fast as they did the weekend before, or they go sometimes faster. So it's really a lot of little nuances can vary or can affect the performance. But
they're not going to have crowds though.
No, it's going to be. They are actually limited how many people from the teams can travel too. Like before,
the NFL supposedly is saying we're going to have crowds. We don't care.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't even know how you can control if you allow crowds in the stadiums. Like, in other sports you can say, like tennis. Tennis is supposed to go back too, and I don't know if it's going to be how. I mean, like the French Open was supposed to have happened basically this weekend. The finals are always around Memorial Day weekend, and obviously didn't happen. They're going to push it back to, they said September, which is back to back with the U.S. Open, which I don't even know exactly when it's going to happen in New York. So, but tennis is tough because obviously you have the crowds there and all that stuff. There's a lot of contact. And they were actually talking about, I think you sent me the tweet about the tennis balls and all that stuff. And did you send me that about, I don't know if you sent it to me, but
with the lady?
Yeah, the lady.
Yeah, but that was just for the local area. That wasn't for the
right. But
professionals.
it's basically is a big thing because I mean all the tennis balls are touched by the ball kids. The umpires, the players, and whatever. So that's a lot of contact, and then they touch their faces and all the stuff, the sweat, the towels.
Well, I think they just have to test the players. That's what they're doing on all the sports.
Right. So
you can't avoid contact between players or anything like that. I mean, it's just impossible.
Right. So all that stuff is a little tricky. But the good news is that at least the team sports, most of them, like I said, football so far is supposed to be on schedule as far as what they're doing. Basketball, if the plan goes forward, they'll
college
play.
Football, it looks like it's not happening though.
Yeah, college is a little different. It's much more difficult to control. But the major leagues, baseball is still kind of working on their deal too. Racing, auto racing, NASCAR has been already happening for a few weeks.
Baseball might not happen. I'm not a big baseball fan. I don't really follow it, but it looks like it might not happen. It looks like the players and the owners just can't get along.
Yeah, but it's more, they're more disputing politically and numbers than actually the desire to play, you know. So, but yeah,
they don't want pay cuts, basically.
Right.
That was the whole thing. And says, well, you need to take pay cuts.
Right, exactly. So I think the second half of the year could be very interesting as far as, because they're also testing new formats that may actually stay for the future.
Oh, I hope the NBA does something fun.
Right.
I hope there's a group stage or a tournament. I think that'd be fun.
The World Cup group stage will be a lot of fun because...
because the thing with it, basically, anybody who's a basketball fan, the first round of the playoffs is always the most boring. Mm-hmm. You have a couple matchups that are good, but like they were saying, okay, if they just go straight to the playoffs, the Bucks and the Magic, the 1-8, it's like,
right,
and it's a best of 7. It's like the Bucks are gonna sweep them, and it's gonna be boring as hell.
Right.
Like, why are we watching this?
The ones that are interesting usually is the 4-5 or 3-6
Right.
or something like that. But the other ones are pretty swayed one way or the other.
But they were saying we could do group stages where you have 20 teams instead of 16, 4 groups of 5, and then the top 2 in each make it. That would be much more fun, and everybody plays each other twice.
Right, and the league also, like they're saying, maybe next season, if they do this one late, obviously starting like in July or whatever, and they do playoffs and all that stuff, then the next season will not start until Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas.
And then they actually say that might be a good thing for the future too, starting with Christmas Day games or something like that, and then having the league kind of shift its whole schedule a little more, and how maybe like a mid-tournament in the middle, like they were planning already that before the pandemic. So a lot of things going on with sports. I think it'll be interesting, and I'm very curious to see how all this new, lack of spectators and everything is going to affect a lot of, obviously, the finances and the club revenues, and then the salary caps and everything that is related to that. So a lot of things to figure out, but it looks like I'm very optimistic. I think things are going to come back to whatever is the new normal, but also things that were not effective before will be kind of become much more effective, and people are going to realize that there's a better way. I mean, there's always a positive way of all this. I was talking to my sister the other day. She lives in Spain, as he was saying, one of the things that I like about the social distance, because they're allowed to go to restaurants there and all that, and they had to make reservations, and then the restaurants are opening like patio spacing to sit outdoors, and they have much more space between them. He says, this is actually pretty cool because you go to restaurants and you also try to maximize the space, and you have all this, you're eating and pretty much the next table is next to you, and you can even move your chair back, and now they say with all these social distances, you feel like you have room to breathe, that you have much more space.
Yeah, but can the restaurants?
Well, that's another thing.
Make enough money.
Some restaurants that have patio space, or they can open 2 other areas, they can basically, instead of putting 20 tables in 400 square feet, they can put them now in 800 square feet. So some of them have the space to do that, some others don't, so it's not a solution for everybody, but there's some creative ways to come up with solutions, and there's no choice. It's either do or die. So that's all I have for today. David, anything else that you'd like to discuss? We have a few more topics, but obviously we'll run over
I think that's enough for today.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, that's all we have. So thank you again for listening. Remember to give us your feedback. This podcast is always brought to you by MGR Agency, which is our parent agency company that both Debbie and I put a lot of time into. And that's it for now.
That funds this show.
Yeah, funds the show. Is the one and only sponsor we have so far. So you want to jump in and have a mention or anything, just let us know. But in the meantime, we'll see you all next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.